you have seen how to clear the timeout to prevent duplication on counter restart. In fact, it would be great to destroy also the timer when the component is destroyed, just to avoid memory leaks. In this case, it doesn't really matter because you are not navigating, and the only moment where you will be removing this component will be on page leave. But for cases like navigation, it is really important. This is something you can do adding the Lifecycle hook ngOnDestroy your countdown component TS. So you come here on top of everything, like we have this on init, we import onDestroy, and then we say the class implements also onDestroy, forces us to implement ngOnDestroy. This is a method returning void, and inside it you can call this.clearTimeout. This way you're making sure that if your component gets destroyed for navigation or whatever, your timer will be also destroyed. But let's figure out another situation. This counter is always starting from the same value. It would be nice to modify the init value. I can do this coming to appComponent.html, adding here an input. Between the counter and the button, I'm going to create a new div, and this div is going to be of class initInput. This will allow me later to add some styles. I'm going to add here a label for total countdown, just with the text init on. And then I create here an input of type text, ID total countdown. I'm gonna associate it to an ng model binded to the property total countdown. So I've just created a div that inside has an input and a label referencing this input. This is making reference to the total countdown ID, and then this input with ID total countdown is binded to the property total countdown. There's no relation between this ID and this property. I could have used a completely different ID. Anyway, the important thing here, this is binded to the total countdown property, the one used here as an init value of the counter. This is a bidirectional binding, that's why it has parentheses and brackets, to the ngModel property. ngModel is something from Angular that returns the content of this input. Okay, I want to add some styles. AppComponent SCSS for the class initInput. I'm gonna add this display flex. And also for the input element inside, we have a margin left 20 pixels. We have a height of 40 pixels. Also a font size of 20 pixels, flex 1, and min width of 50 pixels. So now I come to see the results. I've got here this init on, I can change it to 50, click restart. Okay, it's working fine. There's a bidirectional binding here, and whatever I write here is updating the variable total countdown. However, as I don't restart, the countdown is not restarting with a new value, but it works when I click the button. Okay, so what's next? Well, I like to reset directly the counter when the user changes the init value. When you want to execute some action on changing input properties, what you need is the Lifecycle hook ngOnChanges. So back to countdown component TS, like the onDestroy, we import the onChanges and implement also onChanges to the class. Finally, I have to create the method ngOnChanges of type void that in fact is receiving as a parameter the changes, and you can use those changes inside. So console log init value update to, and I pass here changes.init.current value. Okay, you may say, what? Changes parameter has the same properties that your input, and then for every of those properties you have several data like the old value or the current value. I console log it so you can see it. But in fact, what I want to do on changes detected is to reset the counter, so I call this start countdown again. Back to the results, you can see that it works fine, and in the moment I update the input, the counter on the progress bar automatically updates. So I can read this init value updated to 150. Anyway, the important thing here is that in the moment I make any change here, so I'm changing this input change affects the property total countdown. This total countdown property is the parameter I'm binding to the app countdown component, and in the countdown component I've created this ngOnChanges. So when I detect changes in the init property, that is the one changing in this case, the counter is going to restart. So summing up, you've seen a couple more lifecycle events of the components.